The black SUV's engine growled behind her like a hungry predator. 6-year-old Lily's bare feet slapped against the gravel parking lot, blood smearing from torn skin. Her pink dress was ripped, her lungs burned, but she kept running toward the only door she could see, a door marked with a skull and crossbones, motorcycles lined up like sleeping dragons outside. She burst through that door and ran straight into a room full of the most terrifying men she'd ever seen. What happened next would change everything. Before we continue, subscribe to our channel and comment your city below so we can see how far Lily's story travels. Now, let's begin. The door of the Iron Horse Tavern slammed open with enough force to crack the wooden frame. Every conversation stopped. Every head turned. A little girl stood in the doorway barefoot and trembling, her pink dress torn at the shoulder dirt and tears streaking her face. She couldn't have been more than 6 years old. Behind her, through the still swinging door, the afternoon sunlight silhouetted a black SUV idling at the edge of the parking lot. Victor Ironside Reyes set down his beer glass. At 58 years old, the chapter president of the Steel Brotherhood had seen a lot of things walk through that door. Drunks, cops, rival clubs looking for trouble. But never this. Never a child looking like she'd just escaped from hell itself. "Please," the girl gasped, her voice barely a whisper. "Please help me." Nobody moved. Tommy Wraith Morrison was the first to stand, his chair scraping against the floor. Former Navy SEAL 3 tours in Afghanistan, and he'd never seen terror like what lived in this child's eyes. "Sweetheart," he said carefully, crouching down to her level. "What's wrong? Where are your parents?" The girl's whole body was shaking. Now violent tremors that made her teeth chatter despite the Montana summer heat. She kept looking back at the door at the SUV that hadn't moved. "The bad man," she managed. "He took me from the park. I got away when he stopped for gas. Please don't let him take me back. Please, please, please." The door opened again. A man walked in, mid-40s, wearing an expensive polo shirt and pressed khakis. His smile was warm, apologetic, perfectly practiced. Everything about him screamed respectability: clean-shaven, manicured nails, a Rolex glinting on his wrist. "There she is," he said, shaking his head with theatrical exasperation. "I'm so sorry about this gentleman. My daughter has quite the imagination. We were playing a game and she took it a little too seriously." He stepped toward the girl. She screamed. It wasn't a child's tantrum scream. It was the sound of pure, primal terror, the sound of prey recognizing predator. Lily scrambled backward, her bare feet slipping on the wooden floor, and crashed into Victor's legs. Without thinking, she grabbed fistfuls of his jeans and hid behind him, making herself as small as possible. "No, no, 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 no," she whimpered. "He's not my daddy. He's not my daddy. My daddy's name is Michael. My daddy has brown hair. My daddy would never hurt me." The room changed. 12 men in leather vests, most of them military veterans, most of them fathers or grandfathers, felt something shift in the air. That protective instinct that lives in the chest of anyone who's ever loved a child, it sparked and caught fire. Victor's massive hand came down on the girl's shoulder, gentle but firm. "Stay behind me, sweetheart." The man's smile didn't waver, but something flickered in his eyes. Calculation. Assessment. "Sir, I understand this looks concerning, but I assure you, what's your daughter's name?" The question came from Bull Dominguez, the club's sergeant-at-arms. 6'4", 270 pounds, arms covered in tattoos that told stories of violence and survival. He'd moved to block the front door without anyone noticing. The man's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Lily. Her name is Lily." Behind Victor, the girl flinched at the sound of her own name in his mouth. "And your name?" Victor asked. "Richard. Richard Thompson. Look, I really appreciate your concern, but this is a family matter. Lily has behavioral issues. Her therapist says she creates these elaborate fantasies when she's upset. I just need to get her home, and—" "Lily." Victor's voice was quiet, but it cut through the man's explanation like a knife. He didn't turn around, didn't take his eyes off the stranger, but his voice softened when he addressed the child. "Lily, is this man your father?" "No." Her voice was small, but certain. "My daddy smells like sawdust because he builds houses. This man smells like medicine. My daddy has a scar on his chin from when he fell off his bike. This man's face is smooth. My daddy calls me Lilybug. This man calls me sweetie and darling, and it makes my skin hurt." The room went absolutely still. Richard's mask slipped for just a fraction of a second. Annoyance, frustration, something darker before the pleasant smile returned. "She's very creative," he said. "As I mentioned, she has issues. Now, if you'll excuse me." He reached for Lily. Victor's hand shot out and caught his wrist in a grip that made the man gasp. "She doesn't want to go with you." "You don't understand. I have legal custody. Then you won't mind waiting for the police to verify that." Richard tried to pull his hand back. Victor didn't let go. "This is ridiculous," Richard said, and for the first time, anger crept into his voice. "You're a bunch of your criminals. You can't hold me here. This is kidnapping." Funny you should use that word. Rita Vasquez stepped out from the backroom phone already pressed to her ear. Former Army intelligence, the only female member of the chapter, and the smartest person in any room she entered. 911. Yes, I need to report a possible child abduction. We have the child safe at the Iron Horse Tavern on Route 12. The suspect is a white male mid-40s driving a black SUV plate number. She squinted through the window. Montana 7, David Frank 492. Yes, we'll hold him here. Thank you. Richard's face went pale. This is a misunderstanding, he said, but his voice had changed. Desperate now. You're making a huge mistake. Do you know who I am? Don't know, Bull said from the doorway. Don't care. I have lawyers. I'll have this place shut down. I'll have all of you arrested for assault, for false imprisonment, for... He bolted. Richard yanked his wrist free with sudden violence and lunged for the back door, moving faster than anyone expected. He made it 3 steps. Tommy hit him low, a perfect tackle that drove him into the pool table. Snake. Hendricks came in from the side, and Jimmy Two Fingers grabbed his arms. Within seconds, Richard was face down on the floor with 3 large men holding him in place. Get off me! Get off! I'll sue every one of you! His wallet fell out of his pocket during the struggle, contents scattering across the floor. Bull picked it up and started going through it. Richard Thompson, huh? He held up a driver's license. That's funny. This ID says Raymond Schiller. He kept digging. And this one says David Peterson, and this one says Michael Watts. He looked down at the struggling man with disgust. How many names you got? But it was what else fell out of the wallet that made everyone go quiet. Zip ties. Heavy duty, the kind you'd use for industrial applications. A small roll of duct tape, and a prescription bottle with no label filled with white pills. Lily started crying again, burying her face in Victor's leg. He made me take one of those, she sobbed. At the park. He said it was candy. It made me sleepy. And then I was in his car and I didn't know where I was, and... Victor felt something cold and ancient wake up in his chest. Something he'd felt in Iraq, in situations where the rules of civilization stopped applying. Tommy, he said quietly, check his vehicle. Tommy was already moving. The SUV wasn't locked. What Tommy found inside made him step back and take several deep breaths before he could report. "Vic," he called, his voice strange. "You need to see this." Victor looked down at Lily. "Rita, stay with her." Rita gathered the child into her arms, murmuring soft reassurances as Victor walked out to the parking lot. The SUV's back seats had been removed. In their place was a mattress. Restraints had been bolted to the floor. A cooler sat in the corner filled with juice boxes and animal crackers and more of those unmarked pills. But it was the phone mounted on the dashboard that made Victor's blood run cold. It was open to a messaging app. Coordinates. Times. A conversation that read like a business transaction. "Package acquired. ETA 6 hours. Buyer confirmed. Full payment on delivery. This one's perfect. Young, healthy, no medical issues. Premium price." Victor stared at the screen, his hands shaking with rage he hadn't felt in 20 years. Lily Thompson wasn't being kidnapped. She was being sold. He walked back into the bar, each step deliberate, controlled. Raymond Schiller, or whatever his real name was still pinned to the floor, still threatening lawsuits and connections and retribution. Victor crouched down next to him. "Let me tell you what's going to happen," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The police are coming. When they get here, they're going to find everything in your vehicle. They're going to find your fake IDs and your messages and your buyer contacts, and you're going to spend the rest of your miserable life in a cell." Schiller's bravado cracked. "You don't understand. These people, you don't know who you're dealing with. If you let me go, I can disappear. No one has to know. I can give you money. Money." Victor's laugh was cold. "You think we want money? Everyone wants something. Name your price. 50,000, 100. I can get it?" Victor stood up. "Bull, Jimmy, get him into the back room. Make sure he doesn't hurt himself before the cops arrive." They dragged Schiller away, his pleas echoing off the walls. Victor turned to find Lily watching him, her tear-streaked face peeking out from Rita's protective embrace. "Is the bad man going away?" she asked. Victor knelt down to her level. "He's never going to hurt you again. I promise." "Do you promise like a real promise? I promise, like the most real promise there is." Lily studied his face for a long moment, her eyes far too old for a 6-year-old. Then she reached out and touched the leather of his vest, tracing the Steel Brotherhood patch. "My mommy says bikers are scary." "She's not wrong. But you helped me." Victor felt something shift in his chest, something that had been broken for a very long time. "Sometimes scary people help. Like monsters that fight other monsters." Despite everything, Victor almost smiled. "Yeah, sweetheart. Exactly like that." The sirens were audible now, getting closer. Rita's phone buzzed. She checked it, and her face went complicated. "Victor, I ran those plate numbers and the names from his IDs through my contacts. And Raymond Schiller, wanted in 3 states, Colorado, Wyoming, Nebraska, multiple child abductions. They've been looking for him for 2 years. Victor closed his eyes. "Lily," he said, "how long were you in that car?" The little girl's face crumpled. "I don't know. A long time. He stopped a lot, different houses. I saw other kids sometimes. He said if I was good I could play with them, but—" She started crying again. "But I never saw the same kids twice." The room went absolutely silent. Other kids. Rita was already moving, grabbing the phone from the SUV, scrolling through messages and contacts with urgent precision. "Victor," she said, her voice strange. "This isn't just one guy." "What do you mean?" "I mean, this phone has contacts with 12 different numbers, coded conversations, coordinates for 6 different locations across 4 states. This is—" She looked up, her face pale, This is a network. The first police cruiser pulled into the parking lot, lights flashing. Victor looked at the back room where Schiller was being held. Looked at Lily still trembling in Rita's arms. Looked at his brothers, these men who society wrote off as criminals and thugs. "Everyone listen up," he said. "When the cops get here, we tell them exactly what happened. We give them everything. We cooperate fully." "And then?" Tommy asked. Victor's jaw tightened. "And then we have a church meeting. Because if there are other kids out there," his voice caught just for a moment before hardening into steel, "we're going to find them." The police came through the door, weapons drawn, shouting commands. The next hour was chaos, statements and evidence, and questions that seemed to go in circles. Sheriff's deputies, then state police, then federal agents in their government suits. Lily was examined by paramedics, gently questioned by a child specialist wrapped in a shock blanket, and given juice. Throughout it all, she refused to let go of Victor's hand. "I want to stay with the motorcycle man," she told anyone who tried to separate them. "He promised to keep me safe." He promised. The FBI agent in charge, a sharp-eyed woman named Chen, took Victor aside. "Mr. Reyes, I need you to understand something. The man you apprehended today, the one calling himself Raymond Schiller, is connected to one of the largest child trafficking operations we've been tracking. We've been trying to locate him for 8 months. Happy to help." "I'm serious. What you found in that vehicle, the messages, the contacts, this could be the break we've been waiting for. You may have saved more children than just Lily." Victor thought about the message he'd seen. "This one's perfect. Premium price." "Good." Agent Chen hesitated. "There will be questions about how he was subdued, about whether proper procedures were followed." He resisted. "We restrained him. End of story." "The bruises on his face suggest he fell, clumsy guy." Chen stared at him for a long moment, then seemed to reach a decision. "Yeah, I imagine he did." She handed him a business card. "If you or your people hear anything else, anything at all, you contact me directly. Not local police. Me." Victor pocketed the card. Lily's parents arrived at sunset. The moment the minivan screeched into the parking lot, Victor knew this was a different thing than what he'd feared. A woman tumbled out of the passenger seat before the vehicle fully stopped, screaming her daughter's name. "Lily! Lily!" The little girl's head snapped up from where she'd been dozing against Victor's shoulder. "Mommy!" Sarah Thompson ran across the parking lot, collapsing to her knees and gathering her daughter into her arms. The sounds she made weren't words, they were pure, raw emotion. The grief and terror of 47 hours transformed into overwhelming relief. Michael Thompson was right behind his wife, tears streaming down his weathered face. Construction worker, Victor noted. Calloused hands. Sawdust scented just like Lily said. The genuine article. "My baby," Sarah sobbed. "My baby, my baby, my baby. Mommy, I was so scared, but the motorcycle man saved me. He promised, and he didn't let the bad man take me." Michael looked at Victor, really looked at him, the leather vest, the tattoos, the scarred face and hard eyes, and saw something beyond the surface. "You saved our daughter." She saved herself. She ran. She asked for help. Bravest kid I've ever seen. Michael's voice broke. "We thought the police said we thought we'd never see her again." He held out his hand. Victor shook it. "I don't know how to thank you," Michael said. "I don't have words. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to repay this." "No repayment necessary. Just take your little girl home. Let her be a kid again." Sarah finally looked up, her face destroyed and rebuilt by emotion. She was still clutching Lily like she'd never let go again. "Why?" she asked. "Why did you help her? You don't know us." Victor thought about the question. Thought about all the easy answers he could give. Because it was the right thing to do. Because anyone would have done the same. Because that's just who we are. But Lily was watching him, and he'd made her a promise. "I had a daughter once," he heard himself say. "She'd be about 30 now. She was taken when she was 14. Grabbed walking home from a friend's house." The words came harder now, dragged up from somewhere he usually kept locked. They found her 3 days later. The parking lot went quiet. "I wasn't there to protect her. I've spent the last 20 years living with that. Every kid I help, every predator I stop at doesn't bring Maria back. But it means she didn't die for nothing. Her memory protects kids like Lily." Sarah Thompson stood up, still holding her daughter, and did something Victor never expected. She hugged him. This stranger, this biker, this scary man with the hard eyes, she wrapped her free arm around him and held on. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for saving our baby. And I'm so sorry about yours." Victor stood rigid for a moment, unprepared for the contact, for the genuine warmth from someone outside his brotherhood. Then his arms came up carefully, and he hugged her back. Lily's small hand patted his shoulder. "Don't be sad, Mr. Victor. Your Maria is in heaven and she's happy you saved me. She told me so." Victor's vision blurred. "She told you?" "When I was running to your door, I was so scared, and I heard a voice say, 'Go there. They'll help you. My daddy will keep you safe.' So I did." The world stopped making sense for a moment. Victor wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "That sounds like something she'd say." The Thompson family stayed for another hour, giving statements, answering questions, holding on to each other like they were afraid to separate. Before they finally left, Lily insisted on saying goodbye to each biker individually. She hugged Tommy, who looked uncomfortable, but smiled anyway. She high-fived Bull, her tiny hand disappearing in his massive palm. She told Snake his tattoos were pretty cool. She made Rita promise to come visit her. And when she got to Victor, she looked up at him with those ancient 6-year-old eyes and said, "You're my angel now. Did you know that I'm a lot of things, sweetheart? Never been called an angel." "Well, you are, even if you don't have wings." She paused. "Maybe your motorcycle is your wings." Victor laughed, despite everything. "Maybe so. Will you come visit me? If your parents say it's okay." Lily turned to her mother. "Mommy, can the motorcycle man come visit?" Sarah Thompson looked at Victor, at this terrifying, gentle man who'd saved her daughter's life. "He can come any time he wants. Our door is always open." They drove away as darkness fell. Lily waving from the back window until the minivan disappeared around the bend. Victor stood in the parking lot long after they were gone, the other bikers giving him space. Finally, he turned and walked back into the bar. "Church," he said. "Now." They gathered in the back room, 12 men around a worn wooden table, the door closed and locked. This was where they made their serious decisions, away from prying eyes and ears. Victor stood at the head. "What we saw today," he began, "what we found in that vehicle, this isn't over." Rita had her laptop open, projecting information onto the wall. "I've been digging through Schiller's phone records. 12 contacts in the network. Coded communications going back 18 months. At least 6 locations mentioned as transfer points across Montana, Wyoming, and Colorado." "Transfer points for what?" Jimmy asked, though everyone already knew. "Kids. They call them packages. They have a whole terminology, weight classes, condition ratings, delivery schedules. These people are running this like a business." The silence that followed was heavy with fury. "FBI's got the phone now," Tommy said. "Agent Chen seemed solid. They'll handle it." "Will they?" Bull's voice was skeptical. "How long they been tracking these people? 2 years more, and what have they got to show for it?" "They've got jurisdictional issues," Rita explained. These operations work across state lines specifically because it creates bureaucratic tangles. By the time federal and state and local agencies coordinate, the targets have moved. Victor had been quiet, thinking. Lily said she saw other kids, he finally spoke. Said they kept moving. Never saw the same ones twice. Which means they're being moved through the pipeline, Rita confirmed. Handed off to buyers. Some domestic, some, she paused, international. The word hung in the air like poison. What are we supposed to do? Snake asked. We're mechanics and truckers and construction workers. We're not cops. No, Victor agreed. We're not. He walked to the window, looking out at the darkening sky. But we know these roads. We know these communities. We see things cops don't see because people don't hide from us the same way. They're scared of us, sure, but they're not performing for us. He turned back to face his brothers. Agent Chen gave me her card. Said if we hear anything, contact her directly. I think what she really meant was you can go places we can't. You can do things we can't. Help us. And if helping means crossing lines? Bull asked quietly. Victor's jaw tightened. Then we decide case by case. But today, a 6-year-old girl ran through our door because she thought the scary bikers might be less dangerous than the man chasing her. She was right. And somewhere out there, other kids are waiting for someone to care enough to find them. He looked around the table at these men, his brothers, his family, his fellow monsters who fought other monsters. I'm not ordering anyone to do anything. This isn't club business. This is personal. So I'm asking who's in? Every hand went up. Victor nodded slowly. Then let's get to work. Rita's fingers were already flying across her keyboard. I've got partial data on 3 of the contact numbers, cross-referencing with property records and known associates. Give me 48 hours, I might be able to narrow down at least one of those transfer locations. Do it. Tommy leaned forward. What about Schiller? He's in custody, but he knows things. People. Procedures. FBI will interrogate him. But guys like him, they're more afraid of the people above them than they are of prison. He'll lawyer up and clam down. Bull cracked his knuckles. Shame we can't have a conversation with him ourselves. Not worth the exposure. We do this smart, or we don't do it at all. The meeting went on for another hour. Assignments, schedules, communication protocols. By the time they finished, the moon was high, and the bar had been closed for hours. One by one, the brothers headed home. Victor was the last to leave, walking through the empty main room, past the spot where Lily had crashed into his legs, past the overturned chair from when Schiller tried to run. He stopped at the door and looked back. 20 years ago, in a hospital room in San Diego, he'd held his daughter's hand as she took her last breath. 20 years of grief and guilt and rage channeled into the club, into the brotherhood, into a life that felt like penance rather than purpose. And today, a 6-year-old girl had called him her angel. Victor locked the door behind him and walked to his motorcycle. The night was cool stars, brilliant in the Montana sky. Somewhere out there, other children needed angels. He kicked the engine to life and rode into the darkness, the first soldier in a war nobody else knew had started. 3 days after the rescue, Victor's phone rang at 6 in the morning. We found something, Rita said without preamble. Get to the clubhouse. Now. He was there in 15 minutes, still pulling on his vest as he walked through the door. Rita sat hunched over her laptop, dark circles under her eyes, suggesting she hadn't slept. Tommy, Bull, and Snake were already gathered around her, their faces grim. Talk to me, Victor said. Rita turned the laptop so everyone could see. I've been running the contact numbers from Schiller's phone through every database I can access. Most are burner phones dead ends, but one number made a mistake. She pulled up a photograph. A woman mid-30s professional headshot. Pleasant smile, kind eyes, the sort of face you'd trust instinctively. Denise Paulson runs a nonprofit called Families First Montana. They provide support services for struggling families, home visits, parenting classes, resource coordination. Sounds legitimate, Tommy said. That's the point. But here's the thing. Rita pulled up another screen. Families First received a $50,000 donation last year from a shell company called Mountain Vista Holdings. That same company paid rent on a property in Wyoming that matches one of the coordinates from Schiller's phone. Victor stared at the woman's photograph. She's using a charity as a front. Worse than that, she's using it to identify targets. Think about it, she gets invited into vulnerable homes. Single mothers, families, and crisis people who can't fight back. She evaluates the kids, identifies the ones who won't be missed or won't be believed, and passes that information up the chain. Bull slammed his fist on the table. She's shopping for them. And here's the kicker. Rita's voice hardened. She's scheduled to speak at a community safety event next week. Topic, protecting your children from predators. The irony was so dark it felt like a physical weight. Victor's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen and his expression shifted. It's Agent Chen. He stepped away to take the call. When he came back, his jaw was tight. Schiller's lawyer got him transferred to a federal facility last night. Claimed he was in danger at the county lockup. During transport, there was an accident. Vehicle ran off the road. He's dead, Snake asked. In a coma. Massive head trauma. Doctors say he might never wake up. The room went silent. That's convenient, Tommy said quietly. Too convenient. Chen thinks someone in the network got to him. She's got no proof, but the transport was handled by a private security company with connections to, let me guess, Rita interrupted. Mountain Vista Holdings. Got it in one. Bull stood up, pacing. So they've got people in law enforcement, people who can make witnesses disappear. And we're supposed to just hand over information and hope for the best? No. Victor's voice was calm, but his eyes were not. We're supposed to be smart. Chen's on our side, but she's hamstrung by procedure. We're not. He looked around at his brothers. Rita, I want everything you can find on Denise Paulson. Finances associates' daily routines. Tommy, reach out to our contacts in Wyoming. See if anyone knows anything about that property. Bullsnake, start talking to people in town. Carefully. Anyone who's had dealings with Families First. What are you going to do? Rita asked. Victor picked up his keys. I'm going to visit the Thompsons, see how Lily's doing, and maybe ask her mother a few questions. The Thompson house was small and tidy, a working-class home on a quiet street. When Victor pulled up on his motorcycle, he saw the curtain twitch. By the time he reached the porch, the door was already opening. Sarah Thompson stood there, looking better than she had 3 days ago, but still fragile. Behind her, Victor could hear the sound of cartoons playing. Mr. Reyes, I wasn't expecting, please come in. The living room was warm, filled with family photos, and the comfortable clutter of a home with a young child. Lily was curled up on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, watching a cartoon about talking dogs. When she saw Victor, her whole face lit up. Motorcycle Man! She scrambled off the couch and ran to him, wrapping her arms around his legs in a fierce hug. Victor felt something crack in his chest, that protective instinct, that purpose he'd felt when she first grabbed onto him. Hey, sweetheart, how are you feeling? Better. Mommy won't let me out of her sight, though. She lowered her voice conspiratorially. She even comes in the bathroom with me. That's because your mommy loves you very much. I know. Lily tugged his hand. Come see my room, Daddy put extra locks on the window. Maybe later. Okay, I need to talk to your mom for a few minutes. Lily's face fell slightly, then brightened. Okay, but you have to see my drawings before you go. I drew you. I'd like that. Sarah had been watching the exchange with an expression Victor couldn't quite read. As Lily bounced back to her cartoons, Sarah gestured toward the kitchen. Coffee. Please. They sat at a small table, mismatched mugs between them. Sarah's hands wrapped around hers like she needed the warmth. I wanted to check on Lily, Victor began. Make sure she's adjusting okay. She has nightmares. Wakes up screaming about being in the car, not being able to get out. But during the day, she seems... Sarah shook her head. Kids are resilient, I guess. More resilient than us. And you... Sarah's laugh was brittle. I haven't slept more than 2 hours at a time since we got her back. Every sound makes me jump. I keep thinking about all the ways I failed her. You didn't fail her. I let her go to the park. 5 blocks away, broad daylight, she'd walked it 100 times. I thought... Her voice cracked. I thought she was safe. Victor leaned forward. Mrs. Thompson, I need to ask you something, and I need you to think carefully before you answer. Sarah's eyes sharpened. What is it? In the weeks before Lily was taken, did anyone unusual contact your family? Someone offering services, asking questions, maybe from a charity or government agency? Sarah's coffee mug stopped halfway to her lips. Why? Because the man who took Lily wasn't working alone. We think there's a network and they might be using legitimate-looking organizations to identify targets. The color drained from Sarah's face. Oh, God. What is it? About a month ago, a woman came to our door, said she was from some family services organization. She'd heard we were having financial difficulties. Michael's hours got cut at the construction site, and she wanted to see if we qualified for assistance. Victor's heart rate picked up. What did she look like? Professional, friendly, brown hair, nice smile. She asked a lot of questions about our situation, about Lily, about our support network. I thought she was being thorough. Did she give you a card? A name? Sarah stood abruptly and crossed to a drawer near the phone. She rummaged for a moment, then pulled out a business card. She said to call if we needed anything. Victor took the card. His blood went cold. Denise Paulson, Family Support Coordinator, Families, First Montana. This woman, he said, keeping his voice steady. She came inside your home. Yes, she wanted to see Lily's room. Said it was standard procedure for evaluating need. Sarah's voice was rising. Oh, God. Oh, God, I let her in. I showed her everything. I told her our whole situation, that Michael was working doubles, that Lily walked to the park alone sometimes, that we didn't have family nearby. Mrs. Thompson, Sarah, look at me. Sarah's eyes were wild, the realization hitting her like a physical blow. This is not your fault. These people are professionals. They know how to manipulate. They know how to seem trustworthy. But I let her... You were trying to help your family. That's nothing to be ashamed of. Sarah collapsed back into her chair, tears streaming down her face. Victor gave her a moment, then spoke again. I need you to tell me everything you remember about that conversation. Every question she asked, everything she said. Can you do that? Sarah nodded, wiping her eyes. Yes. Yes, I can do that. For the next hour, Victor listened as Sarah reconstructed the conversation. Paulson had been thorough questions about Lily's schedule, her school, her activities, questions about neighbors and extended family, questions designed to assess exactly how isolated and vulnerable the family was. When Victor finally left, he had 3 pages of notes and a cold certainty in his gut. Lily wasn't a random victim. She'd been selected. He called Rita from his motorcycle. It's confirmed. Paulson visited the Thompson house a month before the abduction. She did a complete assessment schedule, vulnerabilities support network. Everything a predator would need. Rita's voice was tight. I've been digging into her background. She's been running Families First for 5 years. In that time, she's done home assessments for over 200 families. How many of those families had children go missing? That's what I'm trying to find out. But Victor, if even a fraction of those assessments led to abductions, we could be looking at dozens of victims. Silence on the line. Get me that list, Victor said. Cross-reference with missing children reports. Anything that even looks like a correlation. That'll take time. Then start now. He ended the call and sat for a moment staring at Denise Paulson's business card. This woman smiled at families, offered help, walked through their homes, talked to their children, identified the vulnerable ones, then sold that information to monsters. Victor had seen a lot of evil in his life. Combat had shown him what humans could do to each other. But this calculated systematic predation was something different. His phone buzzed again. A text from Bull. Got something. Meet at Murphy's Diner, 30 Minon. Murphy's was a greasy spoon on the edge of town, the kind of place where nobody asked questions, and the coffee was strong enough to strip paint. Bull was already in a back booth when Victor arrived, along with a nervous-looking man in his 50s. Victor, this is Dave Hendricks. Works maintenance at the county building. Tell him what you told me. Dave looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. I don't want trouble. I've got a pension coming in 3 years. No trouble, Victor said, sliding into the booth. Just talk. Dave took a breath. Bull asked me if I knew anything about Families First. I said I'd heard of them, they do some work with social services. Then he asked if anything weird ever happened with them. And about 8 months ago, I was doing after-hours cleaning at the county records office. I saw someone in the files room who wasn't supposed to be there. Victor leaned forward. Who? That Paulson woman. The one who runs the charity. She had a whole stack of files on the desk. Child services records, custody cases, foster placements. She had access to those files. Hell no. Those records are confidential. But she had a key, and she was photographing pages with her phone. Dave's voice dropped. When she saw me, she said she was doing authorized research for a county contract. Told me to forget I'd seen her. But something about the way she said it. Threatening, more like confident. Like she knew nothing would happen to her even if I reported it. Did you report it? Dave looked away. I mentioned it to my supervisor. He said Families First was a valued county partner, and I should mind my own business. Who's your supervisor? County administrator, guy named Garrett Wells. The name landed like a stone in still water. Victor recognized it immediately. Wells, the businessman, sits on the hospital board, the school board, on every board that matters in this county, Bull confirmed. And according to Rita Mountain Vista Holdings, the shell company funding the network has Wells listed as a silent partner. Dave looked between them, confused and frightened. What are you saying? That Wells is involved in something? We're not saying anything, Victor replied carefully. But I appreciate you talking to us, Dave. If you remember anything else, you let Bull know. I don't want to get mixed up in... You won't. Just be careful. And maybe think about taking some vacation time. And Dave left quickly, nearly tripping over his own feet in his hurry to escape. Bull waited until he was gone. Wells is connected to half the power structure in this county. If he's dirty, then this goes higher than we thought. Victor's mind was racing. Paulson does the assessments. Schiller handles the abductions. Wells provides protection and cover. But there have to be more. Buyers, transporters, people handling the money. How do we take down something this big? Carefully, one piece at a time. His phone rang. Rita. You need to get back here, she said. I found the list. Families Paulson visited over the past 3 years, cross-referenced with missing children reports. How many? Rita's voice was hollow. 17. 17 children from families Paulson assessed, all reported missing within 6 months of her visit. Victor closed his eyes. 17 children. But that's not the worst part, Rita continued. I dug deeper into the missing children database. Most of these cases, they're barely being investigated, classified as runaways or custody disputes, like someone made sure they'd be forgotten. Someone with influence over law enforcement. Exactly. Victor, this thing, it's not just a network. It's a machine, and it's been running for years. He hung up and looked at Bull. 17 kids, minimum, all connected to Paulson. Bull's face was stone. What do? We take away her access. That community event next week where she's speaking about child safety, we make sure she never scouts another victim. How? Victor stood, dropping money on the table for the coffee. By showing everyone exactly who she really is. The community event was held at the Riverside Community Center, a multi-purpose building that served as everything from a wedding venue to a flu shot clinic. By the time Victor arrived, the parking lot was half full with minivans and SUVs, concerned parents coming to learn how to protect their children. He'd brought Tommy, Rita, and Snake. Bull was positioned outside, watching the exits. They wore civilian clothes, no leather vests, nothing to identify them as club members. Inside rows of folding chairs faced a small stage where Denise Paulson was setting up a presentation. She looked exactly like her photograph professional, approachable, trustworthy. Victor wanted to tear her apart with his bare hands, but that wasn't the plan. Rita had spent 3 days building a dossier, financial records, communication logs, testimony from Dave Hendricks. Most damning of all, a list of the 17 missing children whose families Paulson had visited. They weren't going to confront her directly. That would just give her a chance to spin the story. Instead, they were going to plant seeds of doubt, strategically placed questions, carefully leaked information, and let the community's own investigation do the rest. The presentation began. Paulson's voice was warm and confident as she talked about warning signs, safe internet practices, the importance of knowing your children's friends. The most dangerous predators, she said with earnest sincerity, are often the ones who seem most trustworthy. They infiltrate communities, they build relationships, they gain access. Victor felt sick. During the Q&A, Rita raised her hand. Ms. Paulson, you mentioned that Families First does home assessments for vulnerable families. Can you tell us more about what that involves? Paulson smiled. Of course. We visit families who might need support services. We evaluate their situation, housing stability, child care arrangements, support networks, and connect them with resources. And you keep records of these assessments. Naturally, everything is documented. How do you ensure that information stays confidential? I mean detailed information about families' vulnerabilities that could be very valuable to the wrong people. Paulson's smile flickered just for a moment. All our records are strictly confidential. Only authorized staff have access. But you do access county records as part of your work, correct? Child services files, foster placement records. Now, Paulson's expression was guarded. Where are you going with this? I'm just curious about your data security protocols. After all information about vulnerable children, it would be terrible if that fell into the wrong hands. The room had gone quiet. People were looking between Rita and Paulson with growing unease. I can assure you, Paulson said, her voice cooling, that Families First maintains the highest ethical standards. Now, are there any other questions? A man in the back raised his hand. Snake. I've got one. A friend of mine, her family was visited by your organization about 2 years ago. Nice woman came to their house, asked a lot of questions about their kids. 6 months later, their 8-year-old daughter went missing. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Paulson's face went pale. I'm very sorry to hear about that, but I don't see how. What's strange, Snake continued, is that the police barely investigated, classified it as a runaway, an 8-year-old runaway. Does that sound right to you? I really can't comment on individual cases. How about 17 cases? The room went dead silent. Tommy stood up now, holding a folder. We've been doing some research. 17 children from families your organization assessed have gone missing in the past 3 years. All within 6 months of your home visits. All barely investigated. That's a hell of a coincidence, don't you think? Paulson's composure cracked. This is outrageous. You're making baseless accusations. Are they baseless? Victor spoke for the first time, his voice carrying through the room. Because we have documentation. Financial ties between your non-profit and shell companies linked to trafficking operations. Records of you accessing confidential county files without authorization. Would you like to explain that? Paulson grabbed her purse and headed for the exit. I don't have to listen to this. This is slander. I'm calling my lawyer. Call whoever you want, Victor said. But the FBI already has copies of everything. Agent Chen, maybe you know the name. She's very interested in talking to you. Paulson froze at the door. For just a second, her mask dropped completely, and Victor saw the real person underneath, cold, calculating, cornered. Then she was gone, practically running to her car. The room erupted. Parents were on their phones demanding answers from local officials, pulling up news stories connecting dots that had been hidden in plain sight. Victor slipped out the side door. Bull was waiting. She's making calls, Bull reported. Panic calls from the look of it. Good. Let her panic. Let her reach out to her contacts. Rita's monitoring. Every call she makes gives us more information. You think she'll run? Probably, but it doesn't matter. The story's out now. Even if she disappears, the investigation continues. Victor looked back at the community center, where concerned parents were demanding answers, where the illusion of safety had been shattered. It was a small victory. 17 children were still missing. Garrett Wells was still untouchable. The network was still operating. But they'd exposed one piece of it, taken away one predator's access, made the community aware that the enemy could wear a friendly face. It was a start. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. You've made powerful enemies, people who can make your club disappear. Step back now and you'll be rewarded. Continue and everyone you love will suffer. Victor stared at the message for a long moment. Then he typed his reply, "Come try." He pocketed the phone and walked to his motorcycle. Behind him, the community center buzzed with outrage and awakening. Somewhere in the night, a network of predators was scrambling to protect itself. And tomorrow, Victor would start hunting again. Because 17 children were still missing. And he'd made a promise to a 6-year-old girl that he intended to keep. The threatening text message wasn't the last one Victor received. Over the next 48 hours, 2 more arrived. The first showed a photograph of his house taken from across the street. The second showed the Iron Horse Tavern with a single word, flammable. Victor showed them to the club at their emergency meeting. They're trying to scare us off, Bull said, his voice tight with anger. It's working, Jimmy admitted. My wife wants me to step back. Says she didn't sign up for this. Nobody's judging anyone who wants out, Victor said. This isn't club business. It's personal. If you need to protect your family. My family is protected by finishing this, Tommy interrupted. These people traffic children. You think they'll stop at threats? You think backing down makes us safe? Snake nodded. Tommy's right. We're already in this. Only way out is through. Victor looked around the table. Every man present. Every man committed. Then we escalate. Rita, what do we have on that Wyoming property? Rita pulled up satellite images on her laptop. Remote location about 40 miles from the nearest town. Property records show it's owned by Mountain Vista Holdings, same shell company connected to Wells and Paulson. Recent construction includes a reinforced main building and what looks like underground additions. Underground, Bull repeated. Why would they need underground space? Nobody answered. Nobody wanted to. I've been monitoring Paulson's communications since she fled the community event, Rita continued. She made 6 calls in the first hour. 3 to lawyers, 1 to an unknown number, and 2 to this property's landline. She warned them. Definitely. But here's what's interesting, the calls to the property were short. 30 seconds each. Like she was leaving coded messages. Tommy leaned forward. Can we listen to them? Not legally. But I've got contacts at the phone company who owe me favors. I should have transcripts by tonight. Victor stood and walked to the window. We need eyes on that property. Physical surveillance. See what we're dealing with before we make any moves. I'll go, Tommy volunteered immediately. Wraith trained me in reconnaissance. I can get close without being seen. Take Snake as backup, but observation only. We don't know how many people are there, or what kind of security they have. Understood. And Tommy, Victor turned to face him. If you see children, you call it in immediately. To me and to Agent Chen. We don't sit on that information. Got it. They left within the hour, taking Tommy's truck rather than motorcycles. Less conspicuous. Victor spent the afternoon going through Rita's research, building a picture of the network's structure. Paulson was the scout. Schiller had been the snatcher now, in a coma. Wells provided political cover. The Wyoming property was some kind of hub processing center holding facility transfer point. But there were still gaps. Who were the buyers? How did they move the children? Where did the money flow? His phone rang. Agent Chen. Mr. Reyes, we need to talk. I'm listening. Not on the phone. Meet me at the old mill outside town. 1 hour. The old mill was abandoned, used occasionally by teenagers for parties, and by the homeless for shelter. When Victor arrived, Chen was already there, leaning against her government sedan with her arms crossed. She looked exhausted and worried. You've been busy, she said as he approached. We've been doing your job. That's exactly what we need to discuss. Chen pushed off from the car. The stunt you pulled at the community event exposing Paulson, it accelerated everything. Good. That was the point. No, you don't understand. The network is moving. Fast. We've intercepted communications suggesting they're liquidating assets, destroying evidence, relocating operations. Victor's stomach dropped. Relocating operations. You mean the children? We don't know for certain, but if they're spooked enough to burn their infrastructure, they might decide certain liabilities need to disappear. The word liabilities hit Victor like a punch to the gut. Then move on them. You have enough for warrants. It's not that simple. Garrett Wells has connections in the state attorney's office. Every warrant application gets flagged and delayed. By the time we cut through the red tape, those kids could be dead. Chen's silence was confirmation. Victor stepped closer. What do you need from us? I need you to back off. Not happening. Victor, listen to me. Chen's voice was urgent. If you interfere with our operation, if you contaminate evidence or spook targets, the whole case falls apart. These people walk. And if we wait for your process, children die. I've got men doing recon on that Wyoming property right now. If there are kids there, you have men where... Chen's face went pale. Jesus Christ. Pull them out, now. Not until we know what's inside. You're going to get people killed. Theirs and yours. Victor's phone buzzed. Tommy. Hold on, he answered. What do you have? Tommy's voice was barely a whisper. We're in position. Victor, there's activity. Multiple vehicles, armed guards, dogs. This isn't just a holding facility. It's a fortress. Any sign of children? Not yet, but wait. Wait. A long pause. East side of the main building. Window with bars. I see movement. Small figures. Another pause. Victor. They're kids. At least 5, maybe more. Young ones. The phone nearly cracked in Victor's grip. Get out of there. Don't engage. Return to base. But that's an order. We need to regroup. He ended the call and turned to Chen. 5 children minimum. Confirmed visual. Armed guards, dogs, fortified position. How long until you can get a warrant? Chen's jaw tightened. Days. Maybe a week if Wells keeps blocking. Those children don't have a week. I know that. Chen's composure cracked. You think I don't know that I've been chasing these people for 2 years? I've seen the files. I know what happens to the kids they take. But if we move without legal authority, the case gets thrown out. These monsters walk free. Victor stared at her for a long moment. Then don't move, he said quietly. What? You stay clean. Do everything by the book. Get your warrants, build your case. Follow your process. And you? Victor was already walking back to his motorcycle. We're not cops. We don't need warrants. Victor, Chen called after him. If you do this, I can't protect you. If something goes wrong. Something's already wrong. He threw a leg over his bike. There are children in cages waiting to be sold. That's wrong. Everything else is just details. He kicked the engine to life and roared away, leaving Chen standing in the dust. The emergency church meeting convened at midnight. Every member present, plus 3 from a neighboring chapter who'd heard what was happening and volunteered to help. 15 men total, most of them veterans, all of them fathers or brothers or uncles. Victor stood at the head of the table and laid it out plain. There are children in that facility. Confirmed. Armed guards, dogs, reinforced buildings. The FBI can't move for legal reasons. If we wait for them, those kids get sold or killed. He let that sink in. I'm not going to pretend this is anything other than what it is. We go in there, we're breaking about a dozen laws. Trespassing, breaking and entering, probably assault. Anyone who gets caught is facing serious time. What's the alternative? Bull asked. The alternative is we do nothing. We trust the system. We hope the FBI gets their warrant before the network liquidates. Silence around the table. My daughter would be 30 this year. Victor continued, his voice rough. If she'd lived, she was taken because I wasn't there to protect her. I couldn't save her. But those kids in that facility, they're still alive. Right now, tonight, they're still alive. And I refuse to sit here and do nothing while that changes. Tommy stood. I'm in. Bull stood. In. One by one, every man in the room rose to his feet. Victor nodded slowly. Then let's plan. For the next 3 hours, they mapped out the operation. Tommy's reconnaissance had given them layout details, guard positions, patrol patterns, potential entry points. Rita worked her contacts to cut power to the property at a specific time. Snake knew a guy who could jam cell signals for a 20-minute window. The plan was simple. Hit fast, hit hard, secure, the children get out before anyone could respond. What about the guards? Jimmy asked. Neutralize, don't kill, Victor said firmly. We're not murderers. These are hired guns, probably don't even know what they're protecting. We put them down, we secure them, we leave them for the cops. And if they shoot first, Victor's jaw tightened, then we respond appropriately, but only in self-defense. Anyone who goes in there looking for blood is out, understood? Nods around the room. We move at 0300, 3 teams. Alpha takes the main building, that's me, Tommy, and Bull. Bravo secures the perimeter, Snake, Jimmy, and the boys from the other chapter. Charlie handles extraction, Rita, and the vehicles. Questions. What about Agent Chen? Rita asked. She knows we're planning something. I'll call her after we're inside. Give her enough time to respond, but not enough to stop us. If this works, she gets credit for a major bust. If it doesn't..." Victor shrugged. "We'll deal with that when we have to." "One more thing," Tommy said. "If there are kids in there, they're going to be traumatized. Terrified. They see a bunch of scary bikers busting down doors." "Good point." Victor thought for a moment. "Rita, you go in with Alpha Team. The kids see a woman first might help them stay calm." Rita nodded. "I can do that." "Then we're set. Everyone get some rest. Tomorrow night we bring those children home." The next day stretched like taffy, every hour feeling like 10. Victor visited the Thompson house one more time, needing to see Lily, needing to remember why he was about to risk everything. She was in the backyard when he arrived, playing with a new puppy her parents had gotten her. When she saw Victor, she ran to the fence. "Mr. Victor, look. His name is Buddy. Daddy says he'll protect me when you're not here." Victor crouched down to her level, feeling the weight of the night ahead pressing on his shoulders. "That's a good dog. You take care of him, okay?" "I will." Lily's face grew serious the way children's faces do when they sense something important. "Are you going somewhere?" "I have to help some other kids." "Like you?" "Kids the bad men took." Victor's throat tightened. "Yeah, sweetheart. Kids the bad men took." Lily reached through the fence and took his hand. "You'll save them. I know you will. Because you're my angel, and angels save people." He couldn't speak, just squeezed her small hand and nodded. Sarah Thompson appeared on the back porch, watching the exchange with knowing eyes. She'd seen the news about Denise Paulson. She'd connected the dots. "Be careful," she called softly, "and come back." Victor stood, releasing Lily's hand. "Take care of your mom and dad, Lilybug." She giggled at the nickname, the same one her real father used. "I will. Promise, promise." Promise, promise. He left before his resolve could crack. At 02:45, 3 vehicles rolled out of the Iron Horse parking lot. No headlights, no formation, just 3 trucks heading into the Montana darkness. Victor rode in the lead vehicle with Tommy and Bull. Rita drove. Nobody spoke. The weight of what they were about to do filled every inch of space. At 02:55, they reached the access road to the property. Snake's contact had already jammed cell signals for a 5-mile radius. In 3 minutes, Rita's guy would cut power to the property. "Everyone ready?" Victor asked. "Confirmation from all teams." "Alpha moving in 60 seconds. Bravo, get in position. Charlie, stay with the vehicles until we signal." The night was quiet. Too quiet. Victor's combat instincts, dormant for decades, suddenly screamed to life. Something was wrong. "Tommy, you said there were guards. Dogs. I don't see anyone." Tommy was peering through night vision binoculars. "They were here yesterday. Multiple patrols. Now it's..." He stopped. "Victor, the main building. The lights are off, but there's smoke coming from the chimney. And look at the east side." Victor looked. His blood went cold. The barred window where Tommy had seen children was dark, but the door next to it stood open, swinging slightly in the wind. "They knew we were coming." "That's impossible. We didn't tell anyone. Chen, she must have tipped them off." "No," Rita shook her head. "Chen wouldn't. She wants these people as much as we do." "Then how?" Bull's voice crackled over the radio. "Alpha Team, we've got a vehicle approaching from the north. Single car moving fast. Everyone hold positions." The car appeared a minute later, headlights cutting through the darkness. It pulled up to the main building, and a figure emerged. Agent Chen. Victor stepped out of concealment before anyone could stop him. Chen saw him and froze. "What the hell are you doing here?" she demanded. I could ask you the same thing. I've been surveilling this property for 4 hours, trying to figure out why all the activity suddenly stopped. Because they knew. Someone warned them. Chen's face went hard. Are you accusing me? Did you tell anyone about our conversation? Anyone at all? No, She stopped. Her expression changed. Oh God. What? My report. I filed a report with my supervisor about potential vigilante interference. Standard procedure. I had to document who's your supervisor, Assistant Director Collins. But he wouldn't. He's been with the Bureau for 20 years. Who else saw the report? Chen's face was ashen now. It would have gone through regular channels, multiple offices, state coordination, if anyone in those offices is connected to Wells. The truth hit them both at the same time. The network had people everywhere, even inside the FBI. The children, Victor said. Where did they take them? I don't know. Chen's voice cracked. I've been chasing these people for 2 years. I thought I was getting close, but they're always one step ahead. Always. Victor turned to Tommy. Search the building. Every room, every closet, every crawl space. If they left anything behind, documents, electronics, anything, we need it. The next hour was a systematic sweep of the property. What they found painted a picture of hasty evacuation. Mattresses in the basement, small ones, child-sized, stained with things Victor didn't want to identify. Restraints bolted to walls. A medical area with sedatives and examination equipment. And in a burn barrel outside the charred remains of files and photographs. Rita pulled fragments from the ashes, trying to salvage anything readable. There's too much damage. Most of it's gone. Most isn't all. Keep looking. Tommy emerged from the main building holding a laptop. Found this hidden in a wall panel. They missed it. Rita grabbed it immediately. If I can crack the encryption, do it. Chen stood apart from the group on the phone with her office. When she hung up, her expression was complicated. I've requested a full evidence team. They'll be here in 2 hours. And your supervisor? I went over his head, called the director directly, told him I suspected internal compromise. That's career suicide. Those children are gone because someone in my organization tipped off the network. Career doesn't matter anymore. Victor studied her for a long moment. Welcome to our side of the line. As dawn broke over the Montana mountains, the club members helped federal agents catalog the horrors they'd found. The basement, the restraints, the medical equipment designed for children who wouldn't cooperate. Victor stood apart, watching the sunrise, feeling the weight of failure pressing down on his shoulders. They'd been so close. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. Mr. Reyes. The voice was smooth, cultured, confident. My name is Garrett Wells. I believe you've been looking for me. Victor's hand tightened on the phone. Where are the children? Safe, for now, which is more than I can say for you and your associates. Is this the part where you threaten my family, my club? Because I've got to tell you, we've heard it all before. Wells laughed softly. I don't threaten Mr. Reyes. I inform. And what I'm informing you is that you're playing a game you don't understand. The network you've stumbled into has been operating for decades. It has protection at every level of government. The FBI agent you've been working with. Her supervisor has been on our payroll for 5 years. How do you think we've operated so long without interference? Every network has weak points. True. You found one Denise Paulson. Careless woman left too many traces. But eliminating one scout doesn't damage the infrastructure. We'll have a replacement within weeks. And Schiller, the man in the coma. A liability who knew too much. His accident was unfortunate but necessary. Victor's blood ran cold. They'd killed their own man to protect secrets. What do you want, Wells? to offer you a choice. Walk away now. Really walk away, disband your little investigation, return to your motorcycles and your bar, and we'll consider the matter closed. Continue and we'll dismantle everything you've built. Your club, your reputation, your freedom. We have enough planted evidence to put you away for life. And the children, not your concern. Victor looked across the property where agents were photographing the basement, where Rita was hunched over the salvaged laptop, where his brothers stood watch with haunted eyes. "Let me make you a counteroffer," he said quietly. "Release those children within 48 hours or I will personally put you in the ground. Not a threat, not a promise, a guarantee. You're in no position to 48 hours, Wells, starting now." He hung up and crushed the phone under his boot. Tommy appeared at his shoulder. Who was that Wells making his play? And Victor watched the sun climb higher, burning away the darkness, revealing a world that was both more beautiful and more corrupt than he'd imagined. "And now we make ours. Rally everyone. We're going hunting." Rita's voice cut through the morning air. "Victor, I cracked the laptop." He crossed the distance in seconds. On the screen, files were cascading, open names, dates, transactions. "What do we have?" Rita's hands were shaking. "Everything. This is their operational database, transfer records, buyer identities, payment routing." She looked up, tears in her eyes. "Victor, there's an address. Current. Updated this morning." "Where?" "A private airfield outside Helena. Flight scheduled for tomorrow night. Cargo manifest lists 11 packages under age 10. 11 children. 48 hours. Victor turned to face his brothers, his soldiers, his family. "We know where they are. We know when they're moving. Tomorrow night, we end this." No one spoke. No one needed to. The 24 hours before the raid felt like walking through water. Victor spent the morning coordinating with Agent Chen, who had thrown her career into the fire by going over her compromised supervisor's head. She'd called in favors from agents she trusted, assembling a small tactical team that operated outside normal channels. "If this goes wrong," she told Victor, "we're all going to prison. If this goes wrong, 11 children get sold overseas. Prison would be the least of my concerns." They met at a safe house. Rita had secured a foreclosed property on the outskirts of Helena. Maps covered every surface. Tactical diagrams, photographs of the airfield taken by club members who'd done drive-by reconnaissance. "The airfield has minimal security," Tommy reported. "Private facility mostly used for corporate flights and cargo transport. 2 guards at the main gate, maybe 3 more roving. Nothing like the Wyoming compound." "That's because they're not expecting trouble," Rita said. "They think they've won. Wells made his call, delivered his ultimatum. As far as they know, we're backing off." "Good." Victor studied the photographs. "What's our window?" Chen pointed to a timeline. "Flight manifest shows departure at 2300. Based on the database Rita recovered, the children will be transported from a holding location approximately 2 hours before takeoff. That gives us a window between 2100 and 2200 to intercept." "Do we know the holding location?" "Working on it. The manifest uses coded addresses, but Rita's cross-referencing with known properties." Bull cracked his knuckles. "What's our rules of engagement?" Victor looked around the room at bikers and federal agents standing shoulder to shoulder. An impossible alliance born from desperation. Non-lethal unless absolutely necessary. These guards are hired muscle, probably don't know what they're protecting. But if anyone points a weapon at a child, all bets are off. Chen nodded. "My team operates under federal authority. Anything we do has legal backing. Your people? We're private citizens who happened to be in the area when federal agents needed assistance." "That's flimsy." "It's what we've got." The hours crawled by. Victor tried to rest, but couldn't quiet his mind. Images kept surfacing Maria's face frozen at 14 forever. Lily's eyes filled with terror and trust. 11 nameless children waiting in some dark room for rescue that might never come. At 1600, Rita burst into the main room. Got it. The holding location. It's a warehouse on the industrial side of Helena. Registered to guess who Mountain Vista Holdings. Of course it is. There's more. I intercepted a communication. Wells is going to be there personally. Victor's head snapped up. Wells at the warehouse. He's overseeing the transfer himself. Too much money on the line to trust subordinates. Tommy let out a low whistle. That's either very confident or very stupid. It's arrogance, Chen said. He's been untouchable for so long he doesn't think anyone can hurt him. Victor smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Let's change his mind. They hit the warehouse at 2100 on the dot. 3 teams moving in coordinated silence. Alpha Team Victor Tommy Bull and Rita approached from the east through an adjoining property. Bravo Team Snake Jimmy and 4 trusted brothers came from the west. Chen's FBI unit held the perimeter ready to move in once the facility was secured. The warehouse was larger than expected, a sprawling complex with multiple buildings connected by covered walkways. Victor could see lights in the main structure, shadows moving behind frosted windows. Counting 8 hostiles, Tommy whispered through the comm. 4 outside, 4 inside. No visual on the packages yet. Hold for my signal. Victor watched the patrol patterns timing the gaps. 20 years since his last combat operation, but the instincts were still there, dormant but not dead. Bravo, take the external guards. Quiet. Alpha, we go in 30 seconds. Copy. The next half-minute stretched into eternity. Then Snake's voice. External guards neutralized. Alpha, move. They flowed through the darkness like water, years of military training taking over. The side door yielded to Bull's shoulder without a sound. Inside, a corridor stretched ahead, lit by flickering fluorescents. Voices from somewhere deeper in the building. Laughter. Someone telling a joke. Victor signaled Tommy left Bull, right, Rita behind him. The first guard never saw them coming. Tommy's chokehold dropped him silently, zip ties, securing his wrists before he could recover. The second guard emerged from a bathroom and walked directly into Bull's massive fist. Out cold before he hit the ground. 2 down. 2 to go. The corridor opened into a central area. Victor pressed himself against the wall and peered around the corner. His blood turned to ice. The children were there. 11 of them, ranging from maybe 4 to 9 years old. They sat on the concrete floor in a cluster, hands bound in front of them, mouths gagged with cloth. Some were crying silently. Others stared at nothing, their eyes empty, already broken. 2 guards stood over them, automatic weapons slung across their chests. And beyond them, in a glassed-in office overlooking the main floor, sat Garrett Wells. Even from this distance, Victor could see the man's confidence, the expensive suit, the manicured hands wrapped around a crystal glass, the casual posture of someone who'd never faced real consequences. Rita touched his arm. Victor, the kids. I see them. How do we do this without putting them in the crossfire? Victor's mind raced. The guards were too close to the children. Any firefight risked collateral damage. They needed a distraction, something to draw the guards away. Then Wells solved the problem for them. Time to load them up, his voice echoed through an intercom. Trucks arriving in 10 minutes. One of the guards nodded and moved toward a large rolling door at the far end of the building. The other began roughly pulling children to their feet. The moment the guards separated, Victor acted. Bull, take the one by the door. Tommy, office. Rita, get to the children. They moved. Bull covered the distance in seconds, his massive form slamming into the guard before the man could raise his weapon. The crunch of bone was audible across the warehouse. Tommy sprinted for the office stairs, taking them 3 at a time. Victor went straight for the remaining guard, who was just registering that something was wrong. The man's hand went for his rifle. Victor hit him low, driving his shoulder into the guard's midsection momentum, carrying them both to the ground. 3 quick strikes, and the guard stopped moving. Rita was already among the children, pulling gags loose, cutting zip ties, her voice soft and calm despite the chaos. "It's okay. It's okay. We're here to help. You're safe now. You're safe." Some of the children started crying louder. Others grabbed onto Rita like she was the only solid thing in a collapsing world. From the office above, Victor heard Tommy's voice, "Don't move, hands where I can see them." Then a single gunshot. Victor's heart stopped. Tommy. He was up the stairs in seconds, bursting through the office door to find Tommy standing over Garrett Wells, who lay on the floor clutching his shoulder blood seeping between his fingers. A small pistol lay several feet away. "He pulled on me," Tommy said, his voice steady, but his hands shaking. "Kept one in his desk drawer." "You okay?" "Fine. He's not." Victor crossed to Wells and looked down at the man who'd built an empire on stolen children. Up close, Wells looked smaller than his reputation. Ordinary. The kind of face you'd forget 5 minutes after meeting. "Mr. Reyes," Wells gasped, managing arrogance even through the pain. "You're making a terrible mistake. Only mistake I made was not finding you sooner. You have no idea what you're dealing with. I have connections at every level. State Police, FBI, the Attorney General's office. You'll be in prison before the week is out." Victor crouched down until his face was inches from Wells's. "Your network is blown. Your assets are seized. Your corrupt contacts are being rounded up as we speak. Agent Chen has a list of everyone on your payroll pulled from that laptop your people forgot to destroy. Right now, federal agents are executing warrants in 4 states. The color drained from Wells's face. "That's impossible. We had people in place. You had a network built on fear and money. Fear fades. Money runs out. What you never had was loyalty. The second things got hot, your people started flipping. Turns out criminals aren't real big on going down for someone else's crimes." Chen's voice crackled through Victor's earpiece. "Perimeter secure. Local police en route. How are the children?" Victor looked through the office window at the floor below, where Rita was surrounded by 11 small figures, all of them finally miraculously safe. "Recovered. All 11. Thank God. Send in medical. Some of them are in rough shape. On the way." And Victor stood looking down at Wells one last time. "My daughter would be 30 years old this year. She was taken by people like you, sold by people like you, killed by people like you. I've spent 20 years waiting to look someone like you in the eye and tell them exactly what they are." Wells's mouth twisted. "And what am I?" "Nothing. You're nothing. You built all this, the money, the connections, the power, and in the end you're just a pathetic little man who hurts children because it makes him feel strong." He turned and walked away. "You can't prove anything," Wells shouted after him. "I'll have lawyers. I'll have the best defense money can." The office door closed, cutting off his voice. The next few hours were controlled chaos. Ambulances arrived, child trauma specialists, FBI evidence teams, local police who'd been kept in the dark until the last minute, preventing any leaks to Wells's network. The 11 children were examined, identified, wrapped in shock blankets. Most had been missing for weeks. 2 had been gone for months. All of them bore the marks of captivity, Malnutrition bruises the hollow eyes of stolen innocence. Victor watched from a distance as parents began arriving. The reunions were devastating to witness. Mothers collapsing, fathers weeping openly, children who'd given up hope suddenly believing in miracles again. One little girl, maybe 5 years old, kept asking for her grandmother. When an elderly woman finally pushed through the police line and the child saw her, the sound she made wasn't quite human, pure animal relief, pure desperate love. Victor had to walk away. He found a quiet corner of the parking lot and sat on his motorcycle trying to keep his hands from shaking. 20 years of grief and rage channeled into this moment. And now that it was over, he didn't know what to do with what was left. "You okay?" Tommy appeared beside him, looking equally shell-shocked. "I keep thinking about Maria," Victor said quietly. "Wondering if anyone ever came for her, if she waited for rescue that never came. You can't save them all, you know that." "Yeah, but tonight we saved 11. That has to count for something." "It counts for everything." Agent Chen approached phone, pressed to her ear, expression intense. She ended the call and looked at Victor. "Wells is talking, trying to cut a deal." "Of course he is. He's giving up names, big names, state senators, judges, businessmen across the Northwest. This thing goes deeper than we ever imagined." "Deep enough to disappear into..." Chen shook her head. "Not this time. We've got physical evidence, testimony, financial records, and Wells on video confessing to coordinate charges. Even his connections can't make this go away." "What about his claim that he has people in the FBI? 3 arrests already, my former supervisor included." Chen's voice hardened. "He signed off on burying evidence from the start. Every case that got classified as a runaway or custody dispute, he made sure they never got investigated properly." Victor thought about all the children who might have been saved if one man had done his job instead of taking bribes. What happens now? Now we build cases. It'll take months, maybe years. But this network is finished. The infrastructure's destroyed, the major players are in custody, and every law enforcement agency in the region is suddenly very motivated to cooperate. And the children, going home. All 11 plus 3 others we found at a secondary location, Wells gave up. 14 children, Victor. 14 lives saved. The number hit him like a physical blow. 14. More than he'd dared to hope. "I need to make a call," he said. Sarah Thompson answered on the second ring. "Mr. Reyes, is everything okay? It's almost midnight." "Everything's fine. Better than fine. I just wanted you to know we got them. All of them. They're going home." The silence on the line stretched for several seconds. Then Sarah Thompson started crying. "Thank you," she managed between sobs. "Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank Lily. She's the reason any of this happened. She's the one who was brave enough to ask for help." "She's asleep. I'll tell her in the morning." "You do that. And Sarah..." "Yes. It's over. The man who took her, the people he worked for, the whole network. It's done. Your daughter is safe. Really safe this time." More crying. But good crying. The kind that washes away fear. Victor ended the call and sat in the darkness, watching federal agents process the scene, watching families reunite, watching the end of something terrible and the beginning of something he couldn't quite name. Hope, maybe. Or redemption. Or both. The next weeks blurred together. Garrett Wells was formally charged with 67 counts, spanning trafficking, conspiracy, bribery, and murder. Denise Paulson was arrested in Arizona trying to cross into Mexico with a suitcase full of cash. The corrupt FBI supervisor Collins hanged himself in his cell rather than face trial. The media coverage was relentless. Montana Motorcycle Club breaks child trafficking ring. Bikers save 14 children from international network. Hell's Angels heroes or vigilantes. Victor refused all interview requests. So did the club. They hadn't done this for attention, but attention came anyway. One morning, Victor arrived at the Iron Horse to find a crowd gathered in the parking lot. Families. Dozens of them. The parents of rescued children, the relatives of victims' community members who'd heard what happened. They'd brought flowers, cards, food. One woman had baked a cake that read, "Thank you, angels." Victor didn't know what to say, didn't know what to do. He stood in the parking lot, surrounded by gratitude he hadn't sought, watching his brothers get hugged by strangers. Lily Thompson pushed through the crowd, dragging her parents behind her. "Mr. Victor." She slammed into him at full speed, wrapping her arms around his legs with the fierce strength of a child who's learned that love is precious because it can be lost. "Mommy told me everything. You saved all the other kids like you saved me. My brothers helped. Victor managed. Lots of people helped. But you started it. You're the main angel." Sarah and Michael Thompson caught up, both looking like they hadn't stopped crying since the news broke. "We don't have words," Michael said. "What you did, what we all did." "No." Sarah stepped forward and took Victor's hand. You lost your daughter, and you turned that grief into something that saved ours. You could have been destroyed by what happened to Maria. Instead, you became the person she would have been proud of." Victor's vision blurred. "I never knew Maria," Sarah continued. "But I know she'd want you to know something. She'd want you to know that her father spent 20 years protecting other children in her name. That her memory saved 14 lives. That she mattered even after she was gone." Something broke open in Victor's chest. 20 years of walls of carefully maintained distance of grief, held tight, because releasing it would mean drowning. He started crying. Not quiet tears. Real crying, the kind that shakes your whole body, the kind you can't control or hide. Lily, still holding onto his legs, looked up with concern. "Mr. Victor, are you sad?" "No, sweetheart." His voice was wrecked. "I think I'm finally not sad. For the first time in a very long time." The crowd gave him space. His brothers formed a protective circle, keeping the media cameras and curious onlookers at bay. Rita handed him a bandana without saying anything. When Victor finally pulled himself together, he found Lily still there, patient and unwavering. "You know what my daddy says?" she asked. "What's that?" "He says the best people aren't the ones who never cry. The best people are the ones who cry for other people. That's what makes them good." Victor crouched down to her level, meeting those ancient eyes in that young face. "Your daddy's a smart man." "I know. That's why I love him." She patted Victor's cheek with her small hand. "I love you too, Mr. Victor. You're my second daddy now." Victor looked up at Michael Thompson, who nodded with tears in his own eyes. "She's not wrong," Michael said. "You're family now. All of you." The trial of Garrett Wells began 8 months later. The prosecution presented a mountain of evidence: financial records, testimony from cooperating witnesses, the recovered database, victim statements from children now safe with their families. Victor testified on the 3rd day. He sat in the witness box facing a packed courtroom, wearing a suit borrowed from Tommy that didn't quite fit his shoulders. Across the aisle, Garrett Wells sat in prison orange, his expensive lawyers unable to mask the reality of his situation. The prosecutor, a fierce woman named Angela Martinez, guided Victor through the events. The rescue of Lily Thompson. The investigation that followed. The discovery of the network. The raid on the warehouse. Mr. Reyes, at any point during this investigation, did you take the law into your own hands? Victor considered the question carefully. We gathered information and shared it with federal authorities. We provided assistance when those authorities requested it. When children's lives were in immediate danger, we acted to protect them. Some would say you overstepped, that you should have let law enforcement handle everything. Ma'am, law enforcement was compromised. There were FBI personnel on Wells's payroll, as this trial has demonstrated. If we'd waited for the system to work, 14 children would be in foreign countries right now, sold to the highest bidder. So you feel your actions were justified? I feel that those children are alive and safe. That's the only justification that matters. The defense tried to paint Victor as a vigilante, a criminal using the rescue as cover for his club's illegal activities. They brought up his record, his associates, the violent reputation of motorcycle clubs. Victor answered every question calmly, letting the prosecutor redirect to the evidence. Then Martinez called her final witness. Lily Thompson walked into the courtroom holding her mother's hand. She was 7 now, taller than she'd been that day she burst through the Iron Horse doors, but her eyes were the same old and young at once, carrying knowledge no child should have to bear. She took the oath in a clear, steady voice. Martinez was gentle, guiding Lily through her testimony with careful questions. The day of the abduction. The terror in the car. The desperate run for help. When you ran into that bar, Martinez asked, were you scared of the men inside? Yes. My mommy told me bikers were dangerous. But you went in anyway. Why? Lily thought about it, her face serious. Because the bad man was more dangerous. And I thought maybe the bikers could be scary for the bad man instead of for me. A murmur ran through the courtroom. And were they scary for the bad man? Lily smiled for the first time since taking the stand. They were the scariest. The bad man cried and ran away, and Mr. Victor promised to keep me safe. He promised. What does that mean, promised? It means a real promise, the kind you keep forever, no matter what. And did Mr. Reyes keep his promise? Lily looked across the courtroom, finding Victor in the gallery. Their eyes met. He's still keeping it, she said. He's keeping it for all the kids. Because that's what angels do. The verdict came after 12 hours of deliberation. Guilty. On all counts. Garrett Wells would spend the rest of his life in prison with no possibility of parole. His co-conspirators received sentences ranging from 20 years to life. The network was dismantled, its assets seized, its surviving members scattered. Outside the courthouse, Victor faced a wall of cameras and microphones. He'd agreed to make one statement, just one, and then he was done. 20 years ago, I lost my daughter to people like Garrett Wells, people who steal children and destroy families for profit. I spent a long time angry about that. A long time broken. Then a 6-year-old girl ran into my bar asking for help, and something changed. He paused, gathering himself. Lily Thompson reminded me that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about asking for help when you need it, even from the scariest people you can find. She trusted us, a bunch of bikers who looked like the villains in every story she'd ever heard, and we tried to be worthy of that trust. 14 children are home because of what started that day. 14 families are whole again. That's not justice. Justice would be if none of this had ever happened. But it's something. It's enough. He turned away from the cameras. Then he stopped and turned back. One more thing. To any child out there who's scared, who's being hurt, who thinks no one will believe them, we believe you. And we're coming. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but we're coming. Because that's what family does. The cameras captured Victor walking away, rejoining his brothers, disappearing into a sea of leather vests and chrome machines. The last shot was of the back of his vest, the Steel Brotherhood patch, clear in the afternoon sun. Above it, a smaller patch had been added. A guardian angel with motorcycle wings. And underneath, in silver thread, for Maria, for Lily, for all of them. 1 year after the trial, the Iron Horse Tavern looked nothing like the bar where a terrified 6-year-old had burst through the doors. The main building remained, but a new wing had been added. Bright. Welcoming. A sign above the entrance read, Little Angels Community Center, in cheerful blue letters. Inside the space had been transformed into a haven for at-risk youth after-school programs, counseling services, emergency shelter for children in crisis. Victor stood in the doorway watching Rita lead a group of teenagers through a self-defense class. Her voice carried across the room, firm but encouraging. Remember, the goal isn't to fight. The goal is to get away and get help. But if you can't run, you make them regret touching you. The kids laughed, practicing the moves she'd shown them. Some were from troubled homes. Others had been rescued from situations similar to what Lily had escaped. All of them found something here they couldn't find elsewhere. Adults who believed them, who listened, who would act. Bull appeared at Victor's shoulder. Got a minute? What's up? Visitor out front. Says he needs to talk to you. Won't give his name. Victor's instincts prickled. Trouble. Don't think so. Looks like a suit. Nervous type. They walked through the clubhouse to the parking lot. A man in his 50s stood beside a rental car, shifting his weight from foot to foot. Gray hair, expensive clothes, the look of someone who wasn't used to being uncomfortable. Can I help you? Victor asked. The man took a breath. My name is Robert Collins. My brother was FBI Assistant Director William Collins. The corrupt supervisor. The one who'd hanged himself rather than face trial. Victor's expression hardened. You've got about 30 seconds to explain why I shouldn't have you thrown off this property. Because I have something you need to hear. Robert's voice cracked. Something about my brother, about what he did, about why he did it. I know why he did it. Money. No. That's what everyone thinks, but that's not. Robert wiped his eyes. Please, just give me 10 minutes. Then I'll leave and never come back. But you deserve to know the truth. Victor studied the man, saw the genuine grief there, the shame, the desperate need to confess something. Talk. Robert's story came out in fragments, punctuated by tears he couldn't control. William wasn't always corrupt. He was a good man, a good agent. 20 years ago, he was investigating a trafficking case in Seattle. Got close. Too close. They took his daughter. Victor went still, sir. Emily. She was 8 years old. They sent William a video and a message back off, or she dies. He backed off. Buried the case. Thought he could protect her that way. And then, they didn't give her back. They said if he ever went after them again, if he ever helped anyone who went after them, they'd release the video of what they did to her. Proof that he failed to save her. Robert's voice broke completely. They owned him after that. 20 years of doing what they told him, covering up their crimes, all because he couldn't face what had happened to Emily. Victor's hands were shaking. Where is she now, Emily? She died in the facility where they kept her. She was 9 years old. William never knew exactly when. They just stopped sending updates. The parking lot was silent. Why are you telling me this? Victor finally asked. Because you lost a daughter too. Because I've read about Maria. Because my brother spent 2 decades enabling the people who destroyed your family, and I thought you deserved to understand that he wasn't a monster. He was a broken man who made terrible choices because he couldn't live with his own guilt. Robert reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. This is from William. He wrote it the night before he died. It's addressed to you. Victor took the envelope with numb fingers. I won't ask for forgiveness, Robert said. What William did is unforgivable. But maybe understanding helps. Maybe it doesn't. I just needed you to know. He got back in his rental car and drove away without another word. Victor stood alone in the parking lot, staring at the envelope. Inside was a single page, handwritten. Mr. Reyes, by the time you read this, I'll be dead. I'm taking the coward's way out because I can't face what I've done. I can't face the families of all the children I failed to save. You asked me once through Agent Chen why I did it. The answer is simple. I did it because I was afraid. Because I thought protecting my daughter meant surrendering to the people who took her. I was wrong. She died anyway, and my cowardice allowed them to take hundreds more. Maria would be 30 this year. Emily would be 28. They'll never grow up, never fall in love, never have children of their own. And I could have stopped the people who killed them. I had the power, the position, the information. But I was too broken to use it. You weren't broken. You turned your grief into something that saved lives. I turned mine into something that destroyed them. If there's a hell, I'm going to it. And I deserve every minute. William Collins. P.S. There's a safety deposit box in Helena First National Bank. Key is taped to the back of this letter. Inside, you'll find everything I never had the courage to use. Names, dates, operations. The complete architecture of the network. Use it. Victor's hands trembled as he turned the letter over. A small key was taped there, just as Collins had written. He walked back into the clubhouse in a daze. Boss? Bull looked concerned. You okay? Get Rita and Agent Chen. Tell them I've got something they need to see. The contents of Collins's safety deposit box took down an additional 47 people over the next 6 months. State legislators, police chiefs, business executives, a federal judge. The network's tendrils had spread further than anyone imagined, touching every corner of the Northwest power structure. Victor watched the arrests on television, feeling something he couldn't quite name. Satisfaction, maybe. Or vindication. Or just the grim completion of something that had started 20 years ago in a hospital room with his daughter's hand growing cold in his. Agent Chen called him after the last major arrest. It's done. The whole network is dismantled. Every major player is in custody or dead. What about the children? The ones who were still missing? We've recovered 31 additional victims based on Collins's files. Most were in international locations. It took time, but we got them out. 31. Added to the 14 from the warehouse. 45 children total. Thank you for telling me. Victor, Chen's voice softened. You should know something. We found records on Maria. His heart stopped. What kind of records? Movement records. We know where she was taken after the abduction. We know. Chen paused. We know where she's buried. Victor couldn't speak. It's a private cemetery in Northern California. The network used it for years. Most of the victims there were unidentified, but with the records we recovered, we've been able to match remains to missing children. You found her. DNA confirmation came through yesterday. I wanted to tell you myself. 20 years. 20 years of not knowing, of imagining the worst, of wondering where his daughter had ended up. Now he knew. Thank you, Agent Chen, for everything. Thank you, Victor. None of this happens without you. He ended the call and sat in the silence of his empty clubhouse. Then he picked up the phone and made arrangements to bring his daughter home. The memorial service was held on a Sunday afternoon in late spring. They buried Maria Reyes in the cemetery, where her mother had been laid to rest 15 years earlier. Cancer had taken Elena before they could find their daughter. Now, finally, the family was together again. The Steel Brotherhood came in full colors, their motorcycles lining the road to the cemetery in a gleaming procession. They stood at attention as the small casket was lowered into the ground, tears streaming down faces that had seen war and violence and death, but never anything quite like this. Lily Thompson stood between her parents, holding Victor's hand. "Is Maria happy now?" she whispered. "I think so, sweetheart. I think she's finally at peace." "Will you be sad forever?" Victor considered the question carefully. "No, I'll be sad sometimes when I think about what she missed. But mostly, I'll remember the good parts. Her laugh, her smile, the way she used to wake me up on Saturday mornings by jumping on my bed." Lily nodded solemnly. "That's how I want to remember the bad time. Not the scary parts. The part where you saved me. The part where I found my angels." Sarah Thompson put a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "We should let Mr. Victor have some time alone with Maria." "Okay, Mommy." Lily hugged Victor's legs one last time. "Bye, Mr. Victor. Bye, Maria. I hope you're flying with the other angels now." The crowd dispersed slowly, leaving Victor alone at the graveside. He stood there for a long time, watching the sun set, watching the sky shift from blue to gold to crimson. "I'm sorry it took so long," he finally said. "I'm sorry I couldn't save you, but I want you to know what happened, because you died. Because losing you broke me into pieces, and those pieces turned into something that saved other children. Your memory protected 45 lives, baby girl. 45 children went home to their families because your dad refused to stop fighting." The wind stirred the flowers covering the grave. "I met a little girl named Lily. She's 7 now. Bravest kid I've ever seen. She ran into a bar full of bikers because she knew she needed help and she wasn't afraid to ask for it. She reminds me of you sometimes. That same stubbornness, that same fire." He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "I'm not going to stop, Maria. As long as I'm breathing, I'm going to keep protecting children. I'm going to keep being the person you needed me to be when I wasn't there. And every kid we save, every family we make whole again, that's you. That's your legacy. That's what your life meant." He placed his hand on the headstone, feeling the cool marble beneath his palm. "I love you, baby girl. I always will. And I'll see you again someday. But not yet. I've got work to do." He walked away as the last light faded from the sky. Behind him, Maria's headstone caught the final rays of sunset, the inscription glowing like gold. "Maria Elena Reyes, beloved daughter, forever in our hearts, gone, but never forgotten." Summer came to Montana in a blaze of sunshine and wildflowers. The Little Angels Community Center was bustling with activity. The after-school program had expanded to serve 3 counties. The emergency shelter had helped 67 children in its first year of operation. A partnership with local law enforcement had created a rapid response network for child protection cases. Other motorcycle clubs had reached out wanting to replicate the model. Victor had spent months traveling training, helping chapters across 6 states establish their own protection protocols. The Steel Brotherhood had become something more than a motorcycle club. They'd become a movement. On a Saturday afternoon in July, the clubhouse hosted its biggest event, yet a celebration for the families of rescued children. Parents and kids had traveled from across the country wanting to meet the men who'd saved their sons and daughters. The parking lot was transformed. Games, food, music. Hardened bikers running 3-legged races with 5-year-olds. Bull sitting in a corner reading picture books to a circle of toddlers. Snake teaching older kids how to change a tire, explaining that self-reliance was important. Rita found Victor watching from the porch, a rare smile on his face. "You know what I love most about this?" she asked. "What's that? Look at those kids. Look at their parents. 3 years ago, those families were destroyed. Those children were broken. Now look at them. Playing, laughing, being kids. That's why we do it. That's why we keep doing it. Rita handed him a beer. Speaking of which, I got a call from Agent Chen this morning. There's a situation in Colorado. A network operating out of Denver. Similar setup to what Wells was running. Victor's expression shifted. She asking for help? She's asking if we want to consult, share our expertise, help them build a case before people start disappearing. What did you tell her? I told her I'd ask the boss. Victor looked out at the celebration, the children, the families, the brothers who'd become something more than an outlaw club. Tell her we're in. Rita nodded and walked away to make the call. As evening fell, the celebration wound down. Families drifted toward their cars, exchanging contact information, making promises to stay in touch. The rescued children had formed bonds with each other, survivors recognizing survivors. Lily Thompson found Victor by his motorcycle. Mr. Victor, can I ask you something? Always, sweetheart. When I grow up, can I be like Rita? Can I help save kids, too? Victor crouched down to her level. You already saved kids, Lily. You saved them by being brave enough to run through that door, by being brave enough to trust us, by being brave enough to testify in court. You've done more at 7 years old than most people do in a lifetime. But I want to do more. I want to be an angel like you. Victor felt his throat tighten. You're already an angel, Lilybug. You don't need a motorcycle or a leather vest. You just need to keep being exactly who you are. Kind, brave, willing to stand up for people who need help. Lily threw her arms around his neck. I love you, Mr. Victor. I love you too, sweetheart. Always will. Michael Thompson appeared, looking apologetic. Lily, it's time to go. Your grandmother's waiting. Okay, Daddy. Lily released Victor and took her father's hand, then turned back. Mr. Victor, will you come to my birthday party next month? I'm going to be 8. Wouldn't miss it. Promise, promise. Victor held up his pinky. Promise, promise. Lily grinned, linked her tiny finger with his, and let her father lead her away. Victor watched them go. The little girl who'd changed everything, the family that had become his own. You know, Bull said, appearing at his shoulder, I've been thinking. That's dangerous. Shut up and listen. Bull's voice was unusually serious. 20 years ago, you were the angriest person I'd ever met. After Maria, after Elena, you were practically dead inside, going through the motions, waiting to die yourself. Thanks for the memories. I'm making a point. Look at you now. Look at what you've built. Look at those kids, those families. You turned the worst thing that ever happened to you into the best thing that ever happened to hundreds of other people. Victor didn't respond. I just wanted you to know, Bull continued, that I'm proud to ride with you. Always have been, but especially now. Because now I understand what this club is really about. And what's that? Family, finding it, building it, protecting it. Bull clapped him on the shoulder. See you tomorrow, boss. He walked away, leaving Victor alone in the parking lot. The night had fallen completely now, stars emerging one by one. Victor looked up at the Montana sky, at the infinite expanse of darkness and light. Somewhere up there, Maria was watching. He believed that now. Had to believe it. I kept my promise, baby girl, he said quietly. I kept it for you, and I'll keep it forever. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. He tensed, remembering the threats that had come this way before. But the message wasn't a threat. Mr. Reyes, you don't know me, but you saved my son. He was one of the 11 from the warehouse. He's home now. He's starting to smile again. I don't have words to thank you, So I'll just say this: because of you, I still have my child. Because of you, there's still good in the world. God bless you and your angels. A grateful mother." Victor read the message 3 times. Then he saved it, adding it to a folder on his phone labeled "Why We Fight." There were hundreds of messages in that folder now, from parents, from children, from law enforcement officers and social workers and ordinary citizens who'd heard the story and wanted to say thank you. Hundreds of reasons to keep going. Hundreds of reasons to never stop. He pocketed the phone and walked back into the clubhouse where his brothers waited. Tomorrow, there would be new challenges, new threats, new children who needed protecting. But tonight, there was peace. And that was enough. On the 1-year anniversary of Garrett Wells's conviction, the Steel Brotherhood held a ceremony. Not a celebration. Something quieter, more meaningful. They'd built a memorial garden behind the community center, a small space with a fountain and benches and walls engraved with names. The names of children who hadn't been saved. The names of victims who'd never made it home. Maria's name was there. Emily Collins's name was there. 117 names in total collected from 20 years of cases the network had touched. Victor stood before the memorial addressing the gathered crowd, club members, families, law enforcement partners, community supporters. "These names represent our failures," he said. "Children we didn't reach in time, lives we couldn't save. They're here so we never forget why we do this work, so we never get comfortable, so we never think we've done enough." He paused, gathering himself. "But these names also represent our purpose. Each one is a reminder that somewhere right now a child needs help. A family is being torn apart. A predator is hunting in the shadows. And it's our job, not just this club, but all of us, to stand in their way." He gestured to the fountain at the center of the memorial. "Water represents life. It flows, it changes, it never stops moving. That's what we have to be, constant, relentless, forever moving forward." He looked out at the faces watching him. Hardened bikers and suburban parents, federal agents, and community volunteers, all united by a common cause. "I was broken once. After Maria died, I thought my life was over. I thought the only thing left was revenge or death. Then a 6-year-old girl ran into my bar and asked for help, and she reminded me that it's not about revenge. It's about protection. It's about using what we have, our strength, our resources, our brotherhood, to shield the vulnerable from those who would harm them." Lily Thompson stood in the front row holding her mother's hand. "Lily taught me that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about acting despite the fear. It's about running toward the scary bikers because they might be the only ones who can help. It's about trusting people even when the world tells you not to." He stepped away from the podium and walked to where Lily stood. "1 year ago, you asked me if I would be your angel. I said I'd try. Today, I want to ask you something." Lily's eyes went wide. "What?" Victor reached into his pocket and pulled out a small patch, the same guardian angel design the club had adopted, but child-sized. "Will you be ours?" Lily's hand flew to her mouth. "This isn't just a symbol," Victor continued. "This is a promise that you'll always be part of this family. That wherever you go, whatever you do, you'll carry the spirit of what we built together. And that when you're old enough, if you choose, you'll help us keep protecting children. Not as a biker, as whatever you want to be, but always as an angel." Lily took the patch with trembling hands. "I'll keep it forever," she whispered. "Promise, promise. Promise, promise." The crowd erupted in applause. Victor looked around at the people gathered there, his brothers, his extended family, the community they'd built from the wreckage of tragedy. They'd started as a motorcycle club, outlaws, misfits, men society had written off. Now they were something more. They were guardians, and they would never stop. Years later, when people asked Victor what the most important moment of his life was, he never hesitated. Not the rescue of Lily Thompson, not the takedown of the network, not the trial, or the memorial, or the community center. It was a quiet moment, on a summer evening, sitting on the porch of the Iron Horse, watching the sun set over the Montana mountains. Lily was there 16 now, tall and fierce, and applying to colleges with criminal justice programs. She wanted to be an FBI agent. Agent Chen had already promised to mentor her. The Thompson family was there. Sarah and Michael, still happily married, still regular visitors. The club was there. Older now, some retired, some new, but the brotherhood unchanged. And somewhere in the gathering darkness, Victor knew Maria was there too. Watching. Proud. He'd spent 20 years broken by grief. Then he'd spent 10 years building something from the pieces. Not a replacement for what he'd lost. Nothing could replace Maria. Nothing could undo the tragedy that had started it all. But something new. Something that honored her memory by protecting others. Something that turned the worst moment of his life into a purpose that would outlast him. Lily caught him staring at the sunset and smiled. Thinking about Maria. Always. She'd be proud of you. You know that, right? I hope so. Lily leaned her head on his shoulder. I know so. Because I'm proud of you. And I learned everything I know about courage from her. Through you. Victor put his arm around this fierce, brave young woman who'd changed his life. You know what Maria used to say when she was little and I was going off to work? What? She'd say, "Be brave, Daddy, and come home every single day, like a little ritual." That's beautiful. Yeah, it is. Victor watched the last light fade from the sky. So that's what I'm telling you now, Lilybug. Whatever you do, wherever you go, be brave. And come home. There's always going to be a place for you here. Lily squeezed his hand. I know. That's what family means. Victor nodded slowly, feeling the truth of it settle into his bones. 20 years of darkness. 10 years of building. And now finally, he understood. The world was full of monsters. Predators who hunted children. Networks that destroyed families. Systems that failed the vulnerable. But the world was also full of angels. Unlikely ones. Imperfect ones. People who wore leather and rode motorcycles and looked like the villains in every story. People who showed up when it mattered. People who kept their promises. People who understood that family wasn't blood, it was choice. Commitment, sacrifice, love. And as long as there were children who needed protecting, as long as there were families worth saving, as long as there was even one person willing to stand up and say, "Not on my watch," the angels would ride. They always would. Because that's what family does.